Okay.
Should I start?
You're all good.
Okay. Thank you all for coming by. I'm Felicia Wu, Content Design Manager at Clover. For those of you watching online, this is a re-recording of the talk that I gave on February 12, 2020 at the San Francisco UX Writers Meetup. I began my UX writing career about 15 years ago when the term UX writing wasn't even around yet. Over the years, I've just loved coming to these meetups, and I've learned so much from this community. So it's an honor to be speaking at this meetup, so thank you, Catherine Strauss, for this opportunity. I want to introduce the Clover Content Design team. We are part of the Clover design team, along with the user researchers and product designers. We design the words that people interact with in our product, from the user interface and help center to release notes and email communications. I'm thrilled to be sharing what we've learned as we build our content design practice, particularly around facilitating relationships. So what do we mean by that? Clover makes point-of-sale systems for small business merchants. Merchants come to Clover with the need to ring up customers and make transactions quickly. Behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. They need to track how their business is doing in reports. They need to monitor their inventory. They need to manage employees and do payroll and taxes. They wear many hats. Running a small business is difficult and complex. It requires a network of people. And that is why it is our company's mission to simplify their lives so they can spend more time building the relationships that matter to their business. And words are crucial in facilitating those relationships. Every screen in the product is an opportunity to earn trust, inspire confidence, and make human connections. Every word has the power to change people's perception about your brand. Words are valuable, but we've learned that how you can create values for your users depends on how you approach your work. First, you'll want to find the core values that guide as a compass to your work. In our case, our core values are manifested in the design principles. About 8 months ago, every design team member from research, product design, and content design came together for a design week. We did cross-design audits, workshops on values and principles. We talked about what we believe and what guiding principles we need to move our product forward. It was three days of soul-searching, brainstorming, and team bonding. And what was powerful about that exercise was that everyone felt invested in the core values and principles. They're not only for designers, but for the content designers and user researchers. The content design team played a major role in distilling and articulating all the ideas into this set of design principles. Now the entire design team has a shared understanding of what great design looks like, and we can all talk about it in the same vocabulary, which is pretty amazing. This paves the way to tighter collaboration between the three disciplines on the team. On the content design side, we're known for our voice and tone work. We focus a lot on how we want to be perceived as a product. If Clover were a person, this is how we would describe our personality. We are human and friendly, but not overly familiar. We're helpful and empowering, but not overwhelming. We're authentic and transparent, but not negative. We're sophisticated, but not convoluted. This has helped us to write in a consistent voice. Now that the entire design team has the same goals, the same guiding principles, we took a step further in mapping our voice principles to the design principles. Essentially, we want to flex our voice to deliver the values that we aim for. So we did a workshop for that. And I want to acknowledge Tori Papajerski's book, Strategic Writing for UX. Her insights in the book were a huge inspiration during our discussions. As we frame our voice and tone strategy around design principles, it just opens up a whole other dimension. Words are not only for expressing ourselves, they're a strategic and integral part of the design process. We see a higher purpose, something bigger than putting sentences together. This new content framework gives us a direction on how we should design an experience to facilitate relationships, meet people where they are, craft for purpose of use, serve as a trusted guide, and bend without breaking. Here's an example. Say you and your friend are at a busy restaurant on a Friday night. It's 7:05. You guys just finished a nice dinner and you're going to catch a movie in 5 minutes. You've been trying to track down your server, and finally you get his attention. He comes over and gives you the bill on a tray. You put your credit card on a tray, and he brings it back to the Clover station to swipe the card, and he comes back to your table with the updated bill. So this whole process, like another 10 minutes could have passed, and now you're late to your movie, and there's a lot of people waiting for your table. The teams at Clover discovered the problem and wanted to speed up the payment process and help merchants turn more tables faster. So we came up with this flow that helps merchants do exactly that. After the server brings you the bill, you scan the QR code on the bill using your smartphone. A screen comes up on your phone where you can give a tip, and then you pay. You see the last screen that says, "Thank you, payment complete, a receipt has been sent to your email," and there's a button for you to view receipt. And guess what? The merchants in the early pilot told us that it was a great feature. Everything works well, but the customers didn't know they could leave the restaurant after they paid. So this feedback reminded us with one of our design principles, crafting for purpose of use. Every content decision should support what the tool is meant to do. We took the feedback and worked with the product designer to update the final screen to say, "You're all set, see you next time. A receipt has been sent to your email." And we took out the button for viewing the receipt because it wasn't relevant to the purpose of the tool. We validated it with people in the office who knew nothing about the feature but could potentially go to a restaurant that night. They all understood that they could leave the restaurant after they paid, after seeing that screen. So both versions sounded friendly, but the second version met the user's goals. We made sure that every screen, even the seemingly mundane confirmation message, tells the best story with a purpose. It looks so simple, but it's hard at the same time if you're not well-grounded on your guiding principles. What else did we learn from this content framework? Dare to design. I've always wondered why people don't seem to care about words. Have you wondered that? Perhaps we care too much about words at the wrong time. In the past, I found myself making these kinds of comments when working with a designer. This sentence could be shorter, or you're missing a comma, or I just hate this word, I think we should use this other word. That's when I pushed myself away from designing and into copywriting. I think it's the worst identity that a content designer could have. And it's really not the best way to help people understand the value that a content designer brings. What I'm saying is, don't start with crafting perfect sentences, but do start with a conversation. But you might say, well, we're not doing content first. When the mock-ups get to me, the flows have been decided, and what's left are the words. Whichever discipline comes first, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't replace conversations. When your designer puts some text in the mocks, next time, don't despair. It's just the beginning. To some people, it takes courage to design. Our content designers find it easier when we ask clarifying questions like, what is the business goal, business objective? What is the state of things today? What do we want them to know versus what do they expect? What is the user thinking, feeling, and doing? Which design principles should we dial up? How should we sound? And what does the user need to be successful? So check out the story from one of our content designers. The merchant is in the sales overview report, and they're getting 2 new views on this report, their trends and full report. We got a request to help the merchant learn what this new feature is about. And this modal is the first draft that we got. It explained both views in one message. As the content designer probed deeper, the business goal was actually discovery, not education. When the merchant is working, they're not expecting to be educated at that moment. And we shouldn't bombard them with too much information. Essentially, we want to dial up the design principle of meeting people where they are. The content designer worked with the product designer to design 2 shorter messages, each prompting the user about the other view if they toggle the buttons. And this way, we're not telling them what they're already looking at, but just what they can expect from interacting with the 2 buttons. So that was designing for a happy path. We're giving merchants shiny new tools to help them do their jobs. What if you're taking away something that they've been using, and you're the person that delivers the news? When we got a request that we were going to deprecate an app that the bar owners and bartenders had been using for years, our first reaction was, well, we can't use the word deprecate. But what's at stake is more than just word choices, though they're important. If we don't communicate this right, we may get hundreds of support calls, and our relationship with the merchants may be in jeopardy. Here's how we design the experience. So the team decided that we want to be a trusted guide. What that means in this experience is we'll want to strike the right tone. We started out with a very empathetic tone because we felt bad that we were taking away the app and it might interrupt their business, even though there is a better alternative for them. We started with the why. We give them some information to act on. Then we say, we're sorry for the disruption this may cause to your business. But the team felt it was a little negative, not quite speaking in Clover's voice, which should be authentic and transparent, but not negative. As we developed the experience, we got one more request to tell them that they can upgrade their plan if they want to get more benefits out of this functionality. So our tone became direct and informative. We also realized that when the merchant sees this message, they're likely to have some customers in front of them. So we landed on a few business objectives. First, we really want them to read the message. We don't want them to skip. Second, they understand this app is going away on a specific date. Third, they know with a high level of confidence on what to do after the app is gone. We worked with our product designer and researcher to test this for content comprehension and feelings about this message. The majority of the people said that the message felt helpful, direct and helpful, and they understood when the app was going to go away and what is the other app that we're recommending to them. So that's exactly what we wanted, but the bit about upgrading had them asking questions. It actually brought more confusion than clarity. So it wasn't meeting one of our business goals, which is a high level of confidence on what to do. So our tone became direct and positive in this final version. We took out the bit about upgrading their plan and let the Help Center article take care of all the details on the why and how. To sum up, first, find your core values that serve as a compass, and then flex your voice to deliver value. Last, dare to design. And I would like to end the presentation with one of my favorite quotes: trust the process. If the process is sound, the product improves. Thank you. The product manager. We actually have a Q&A after all the presentations, so yeah, you can save your questions for later.
We invite Carrie up. Okay, hello. Before I get started, first I want to thank Felicia again for hosting this event. I'm really glad that it's down the South Bay, so I don't have to do the San Francisco commute, which is fun because I already drive from Tracy every day, so here we go. All right, so we should talk a little bit about how to flex your voice to deliver value, and that's what I'm going to talk about is how do you do that then when you have a product and now you've got a new part of the product and you have a totally new audience. How do you understand how to talk to those customers? So just a little bit about QuickBooks. Our mission is to power prosperity. We use AI, natural language processing, machine learning. We're trying to solve our customers' biggest financial challenges. We do accounting software for small businesses. We have several different products. So we have QuickBooks Desktop. We have an enterprise version of that. But then we have QuickBooks Self-Employed, so people like your Uber and Lyft drivers, and QuickBooks Online. And within QuickBooks Online, we have a version for accountants and subscription plans for small businesses. And then we have the newcomer, QuickBooks Online Advanced, which launched in, I believe, August of 2018. I joined the team this time last year. And so it was still pretty new. This was a subscription plan for mid-sized businesses, which we define as people who have anywhere from 10 to 100 employees. So they're kind of in this rapid growth mode. And we're trying to, they're not quite ready for enterprise, but they have more detailed accounting needs than a small business owner might. So we wanted to understand who are these customers? And we set up a bunch of research to explore, what does it mean to be a business of this size? How does work get done in these businesses? What are the roles within the company? How is the org structured? What does their tech stack look like? How do those tools work together or not? So we had cross-functional partners join in on all of these research. We set up calls with not necessarily QuickBooks Online customers, but people who fit the criteria of what we considered a mid-market customer. So these are people who are CFOs, controllers of these mid-market companies. So we all joined on the calls to increase customer empathy and also help inform the features that we built. Where can we find these gaps that these customers aren't getting in their current tech stacks? And from a content perspective, I'm interested in how do they talk? What words are they using? What's their level of accounting knowledge? How do they explain this terminology and process it back to us so that I know how to talk to these customers in product? So what we learned from our research is we had a better idea of how we're defining what a mid-market customer is. CFOs, controllers, AR and AP clerks, CEOs, COOs, and we found that they have more detailed accounting needs than a small business owner. They're very experienced and financially savvy, so they are pretty fluent and comfortable with complex accounting terms, stuff that we wouldn't use in QuickBooks Online for small businesses or self-employed. These people, they use these accounting terms in everyday language. When we were on the calls with them, they're using terms that we just wouldn't use. Things like KPIs. We wouldn't use that for a small business owner, but for this audience, they were very familiar with that. So there's a few key differences that we identified. Whereas mid-market customers are working on the business, they have a plan to grow their org. They have an expansion plan in place. Small business owners, on the other hand, they're in the business. They're thinking about it, but they don't really have a plan to scale. They're so busy running their business that that's not really, they can't focus on that. Small business owners wear a lot of hats. They're the ones doing the work. They are the ones sending invoices, keeping track of expenses, following up on payments, whereas mid-market businesses have dedicated people for dedicated jobs. They're more like mini corporations. So based on the research, it was clear that for this mid-market audience, they were very different from small business owners, and that our QuickBooks voice and tone need some flexibility to address this unique audience segment. So how do we talk to these customers? Many of them are actually accountants, so they understand accounting better than many small business owners. So based on the research that we did, we were making adjustments in the language and word choice that we use for this audience. We're still sounding like QuickBooks, but we're just using terms that they use throughout the product in the appropriate places to help them get their work done. Developing messaging that acknowledges their unique needs and pain points. And while some of the language and word choice is more jargony than what we use for a small business owner, it actually reflects that everyday conversational language that mid-market customers use. So I went and mapped how we take the QuickBooks voice and tone and flex that for a small business audience. So on the left is one of our QuickBooks voice attributes. We want to speak their language. How does that sound in QuickBooks? Human-to-human conversation. But how we do that for the mid-market is, we think of accounting terminology as everyday language for most of these people. So we still are conversational, but we do use industry terms when it's appropriate to enhance clarity and understanding. We're passionate. Our customers inspire us. We are enthusiastic about helping them. But for the mid-market, we also understand and acknowledge that their concerns and pain points are very different than small business owners. And this slide, or this voice attribute, is actually really important for us internally, because these are the big things that separate the mid-market customer from a small business owner. So small business owner, they're really concerned with simplicity, getting things done quickly. Mid-market, they want efficiency. The ease isn't as important, but they want to know that it's going to be efficient for them. They need it to be accurate. They're not so concerned with the speed at that point. And they need it to be robust. They don't really necessarily care about simplicity. It has to have all of the reporting capabilities they need, all of the data capabilities that they need. And then just optimism. So, for a small business owner, we stay positive and confident. We do that for mid-market too, but we also need to convey confidence in our product, because a lot of them, they're very experienced. We don't necessarily need to pat them on the back or give them a lot of reassurances that they're doing something right. They need to know that they're in the right product for them. So we use messaging to communicate flexibility, functionality, and customizability without overpromising its capabilities. We also developed a word list. So this is just a small example of words that we would use for mid-market customers, but not a small business owner. And also it helps to indicate when is it okay to use an acronym. Because a lot of times for QuickBooks Online, we would not use an acronym. But this audience, through the research, they're dropping terms like AI, KPIs, so they understand these acronyms. So this is an example of a difference that we would do for a mid-market customer. This is a widget where they can create their own reporting graphs. So we would ask them, what KPI do you want to track? But on the other hand, if we were to show this to somebody, a small business owner, that they probably wouldn't know what KPI stands for. And in fact, one of my colleagues did some research and found that, those people do not understand what a KPI is. So for that audience, we would ask them, what do you want to track? We don't need to give it a term. Let me grab my notes here. So research research was really important in helping inform this voice and tone flex. And so being involved in the research was really critical for understanding this audience and crafting the content strategy. As content designers, it's important for us to understand and feel empowered to tackle research on our own. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about a couple different ways you could approach research and some tips for successful customer interviews. So getting started with research, the biggest thing is just to understand, define your goals. Who is your customer? What are you trying to learn? And being extremely narrow with those goals, because that's going to help you get to the right target person you want to be talking to get the learnings you need. If it's possible, get coaching. I know it's hard if you're at a smaller company and maybe you don't even have a research team. Talk to one of your design partners that might have research experience, because there's a lot of different methodologies that you can use to do research beyond just customer interviews. If you're specifically trying to test content, you can do things like A/B tests. You can do highlighting exercises where you have them just look at the content without the design and have them underline things that they like, underline things in a different color that doesn't make sense. So it's a good way to gauge whether or not your content is resonating with people. And then see what else is happening across the company. Product managers, other designers, they might already have studies going on that you can just piggyback onto, so that you're not just starting from scratch and trying to put this thing together by yourself. And so when it comes to really understanding your customers, I would say there's no substitute for interviews. How they work, what their day is like, why they use your product or why they don't. So it really starts with being able to craft really good questions. Keep it open-ended. You don't want to ask things that people can respond yes or no to, because it takes away the opportunity for them to really dig deep into the why. And the most important part is just listening. Give them space. Be comfortable with silence. It can be very awkward to ask somebody a question, and you kind of want to make them feel less uncomfortable, so you kind of add things onto the question, but ask the question, be quiet, don't put the answer choices in the question, because that would lead them to a certain answer. So, I will leave you with a short clip of, don't leave them on, don't just look for the sound bites you want, let them speak and tell it to you in their own words. We'll see if this works. You get the point. Well, that's it for me. Any questions before we move on to Meredith? Yes.
You were talking about interviewing them, like you're talking about interviewing them with your product or using your product?
It could be people that are already using the product, or it could be people who don't. Because you're trying to understand the people who do use your product and people you want to be using your product. So if you can talk to people who aren't already using it, that's a good place for you to identify, where do we have gaps in our product? And one thing I forgot to mention about being involved in these types of interviews is that you as a content designer, because you're listening to what these customers are saying about their pain points, what they need, how they work, it's a really good opportunity for you to understand the customers so that you can start having a point of view and pushing for the product to be better.
Yes. How do you know who to choose for your customers?
Yeah, so for advanced, when we were doing all of those customer studies, we were looking specifically at CEOs, chief financial officers, people that were kind of in these more higher level positions within these growing companies. So if you're thinking about research, it really comes down to, what are you trying to learn? And then once you know what you're trying to learn, you can figure out who should I be talking to find out, to get the information I need to make these decisions. Yes?
Were you asking these, so to say, power users to pay more for that service? And then secondly, how did that business goal affect your content strategy?
Yeah, so we weren't asking people anything about money. We were just trying to figure out how do these people work, what's their day-to-day look like, because we were trying to figure out what we need to be building for features, and in order to be able to get people into the product, we needed to have something for them to come to. So we just weren't asking about money at all.
So they didn't pay more for a specific experience?
Well, our subscription plans are all tiered, so they, the more capability and functionality you get, the higher price was, but in terms of the interviews themselves, we weren't talking about money. Yes?
The interviews were in person or were you doing it through phone?
Yes, there was a couple of ways that we did this. The first phase was all over the phone, or we use a video conferencing tool. And then the second phase, a few team members actually went out to different the people that we talked to earlier, we went out to their businesses and spent a couple of days with them, basically shadowing them to see, how they work, what their office is like, all that. Okay. I'm gonna hand it over to Meredith. Meredith, if you have questions, I will take them when we're done.
All right, I see a question over here. Maybe we could say that.
Yes.
Were the customers, were they existing customers or potential customers?
These were, I would say, potential customers, people that we're trying to target with this product, or the new SKU, yeah.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much to Catherine and Felicia and Clover folks for hosting, and mostly for all of you for coming out on a Wednesday night. I'll be talking about making conversational UX writing and content design.
Meredith, can you hold the mic a little bit closer?
Yes. Is this better? All right. Thank you, Catherine. Basically, I was just saying thanks to all of you. So as a content, now it's not working. It is plugged in.
I can hear you.
Oh, we're using it.
I am.
All right, I'll just stay at 30. That's fine. So as a content designer at a company focused on business messaging, I have really been focused on this question of, sorry, my slides aren't advancing at all.
Let's see.
Yeah, I'm giving up on the clicker. I just don't know.
It looks like it's frozen. Let's have a 10%.
Yeah, no, that works. Yeah,
Oh, it's working
it's
now.
just frozen. All right. Thanks for your patience. Tech, love it. So, Meredith Castile, I work at Intercom, which is a business messaging software. Intercom is the iconic messenger for businesses and customers to communicate to each other. And as such, I have been fascinated with crafting conversation, crafting the conditions for good conversations. So tonight, I'll delve into the theory of conversational design, conversational thinking. I'm a recovering academic, so you'll have to bear with me. I love myself some good theory. And then we'll delve into some practices. Okay, so conversational thinking is this concept that I've been thinking about. It's a concept I invented to try to get at what we as content designers do best. A lot of my thinking has been informed by Erica Hall's excellent book, Conversational Design. Definitely read it. And one of the things that Hall observes is that conversational design accounts for a critical element of experience, which is time. If you think about it, the things that make up UX are time, space, and structure. And we've got system thinking for thinking about structure, right? Like, how do the parts of the product fit together? What are the concepts that people need to map their mental models onto the structure of the software system? And we've got graphical thinking. Like, how can we use space and layout to meet X goal or solve Y problem? But I would argue that we also have conversational thinking. And conversational thinking introduces the element of time. It introduces the element of emotional terms and conversational turn-taking. I use this image because on the left side you see the numbers indicating the time and progression. And this is all about how might the give and take of UX interactions unfold. So takeaway one from the first section of this talk is, our superpower is conversational thinking, and we can lean into that as a discipline. Okay, so what's a good conversation? I would argue that tone isn't enough. So we all have these favorite pieces of microcopy, like Netflix is who's watching, as opposed to select a profile. That's UX writing gold. Is it truly structurally conversational? Alone? No. A UI that uses friendly language but doesn't flex in response to user inputs isn't truly conversational. So in everyday conversation, we know that good conversational experiences require rhythm and what linguists call turn-taking. Animals do this. It's a way animals bond. And we see this in human play, too. Everybody knows that it's not part of the rules of the game to leave the person on the top of the teeter-totter, right? Like, you have to take turns, and there's a rhythm to it. And what's good in face-to-face conversation is good for HCI, too. It's good for digital experiences, too. So as in play, we need to start thinking about cadence. Good conversation has cadence, rhythm, and rules, and we need to think about that in our content design. Okay, that's the theory part. Practical part. 3 practices to try. The first is something that I did when I first started out in UX writing. And I was working very much at the surface of the designs. I wasn't in a position to really inform the way, the layout of the flow. I was just doing UX writing. And this is my way that I was able to be conversational. I booked a room. I washed my brain with a placeholder text. I pretended I was in a call and talked out loud about everything. Each button, label, string, tooltip, as if I were talking to a person. I recorded my work in a table or sheet. Sometimes I used what we called a content matrix of screenshot, proposed copy, and notes. And that was my sort of first attempt at conversational UX writing. I moved into content strategy and deeper content design. And this is sort of how I think about content design now. You've got the surface, and as you develop in your career, you sort of work down toward the strategy layer. And so a really important practice for me in this phase was a content-first practice. So for this, you can list all the elements that need to go into the experience. And then you rank their priority. What can be combined, what can be eliminated, to create what's called a priority guide. And then based on that priority guide, you can sketch out a mobile-first wireframe. So this isn't conversational, but it gets you toward the beginning of the design process where you can start influencing the conversational approach. So now what I've been doing, again, Intercom is a company that does chatbots and messaging, and so I'm often having to create very conversational experiences. But I've used this exercise even for like settings pages, pricing pages. You do a bunch of research, you have all the information in your head, all the sales requests, all the customer service requests, UX research, have it in your head. And you imagine that you are sitting next to your user, and there's no interface, it's just the conversation. And you're talking the user through the steps they need to make step by step. Again, speak out loud, pretend you're on a call, write everything down, repeat, and then partner with other designers to make it happen. So again, sort of conversational UX writing, priority guides, and really tapping into your inner screenwriter and just writing the dialogue of your design and talking the user through the decision points. Okay, so we just have a few more minutes, but I'll do a quick case study of a chatbot that I wrote for Intercom. Okay, so Intercom sells chat experiences, and you click the thing on the bottom of the page, the messenger pops up. It's beautiful. And so I was working on a growth team focused on top of funnel experiences. So this was really like flexing toward the marketing side. And we had analytics come to us and say, look, bigger customers convert and retain better when they talk to our sales folks. So the challenge was, okay, can we get more folks to talk to sales? When I joined the project, the designer had explored sort of static onboarding-like screens as well as a form. So this is pretty standard for B2B companies. You just enter your information in a form and then sales calls you back. My big idea was, hey, instead of a form, let's invite people to open up the messenger and test out the product that they're going to buy. And while we're at it, we'll have them talk to sales. We got buy-in. We had many design questions. Should we tell people that they're going to have to talk to sales? If we don't tell people, is that kind of deceitful? Or is it a seduction? I thought it was a seduction, and I won through A/B testing. And then we needed to work with research and marketing to figure out, okay, well, how do we deliver the right information in all of these forking paths that is the chatbot? And how do we deliver big chunks of information in a way that seems conversational. How do we have enough quick replies in there so it's not like, you know, being lecture read across the dinner table? And then this very much resonates with Carrie's talk. Is it okay to use some industry jargon if that's the way our buyers think and talk? You know, when we're talking to support folks, is it okay to talk about CSAT? Or is that off-brand for us? We ended up using CSAT. So I realized like after this project was over, that actually what we had, each decision point, as we were figuring out, as I was figuring out this flow, really mapped back to this British philosopher of language, Paul Grice, who had these maxims. Quantity, don't give people too much information, don't give them too little. Quality, be accurate and truthful. Relevance, stay focused at the thing at hand, and manner, voice and tone. So I feel like this could be a QA checklist, just Grice's maxims for like all of UX writing. We had really great results from this. We went through a number of tests. We ended up driving up conversion by a lot. And when you consider that people who talk to sales spend 2 times more and churn less, it was quite significant, the results we got. So the results, conversation wins. We couldn't have gotten this with a form. So takeaway form, remember Grice. Finally, just to close, I think we're definitely headed as a discipline toward a place in which users expect and demand a level of responsiveness and attunement through, you know, like using their data. And content design has a unique opportunity. I think more and more we as content designers will need to partner with our technical peers, engineers, AI architects, to craft interfaces logic, parameters, intelligence, and conversational terms. I think it's going to be fun. So, thanks everyone.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
And again, just a pitch for Erica Hall. She talks intelligently about Grice, so she's a good resource.
You mentioned that.
Thank you, Meredith. Before we have any questions, we're going to have our 3 speakers come up and sit up here in the official chairs, and then we'll do our question Q&As. Do I have a volunteer to help hand on the mics? All right, so Felicia and Carrie and Meredith, you want to sit up there, and we'll do maybe just 5 minutes or so of Q&A. Just get your burning questions out, and then we'll have a little activity before we let you go. All right. I think there was one back here.
Well, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that your engagement went from 30% to 70%. So how did you get that figure of 70%? What was the research behind it, or how did you arrive at that percentage?
Yeah, so this was analytics. We did a number of tests. The first test was like telling people you're going to need to talk to sales. Click this button to talk to sales. And predictably that didn't work. The seduction approach did. It was just how many sales deals closed. And the sales window is longer, of course, than a self-serve window, so we had to wait for results until the sales folks got those deals before we went close.
All right, any more questions?
Is this Michael? Hi, Meredith.
You told me about it over LinkedIn.
I know.
Nice to meet you.
Real life. I'll give you a hug later. I love your presentation. I love your talk, how you talked about conversational design between systems and graphical presentations. And I think that's so rich. I do so much work in design systems, so I find that fascinating. And are you going to write a Medium article about this? I would love to see you put that down to share with more of the community.
My boss, Jonathan Coleman, actually told me to write an Intercom blog post about it today, so I've got my marching orders.
Great, thank you.
And I think when Jonathan tells you to do something, you do it, right? Any other questions? Up front?
In the middle, the interviews that you talked about, did you conduct the interviews yourself?
No, so this was a team effort. We had a team researcher who was coordinating all of the interviews, leading the interviews. We were all on a call, so when we had questions, we were able to jump in and ask questions of the customers, but there was a researcher who was actually leading the call.
I have a question for all of you. Meredith mentioned tap into your inner screenwriter, and I have written screenplays for UX writing myself before, and it was a big hit at the company. I wonder if any of the three of you have done that. Just screenplayed it out, the entire conversation. You have, Felicia?
So yes, I did a lot of this at my previous company actually, because I worked on chatbot experiences for customer service, and I would use the XMind tool to map out all the conversations and in dialogue, and that was actually a lot of fun. Yeah, I think that's the key to conversational design. You really have to see this it's turn-based, right? And and I got into role play a lot too. Like imagine the customer asks you this question, how would you respond to it?
Yeah, I've used, you can just get free screenplay software on the internet and just download it and just, write out it's really good for onboarding processes to actually script it out, and it's really fun. I would recommend it. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I have a question for Meredith about Hierarchy Guide. I think it's really interesting how we talked about using Hierarchy Guide to create wireframes. I wonder if how you collaborate with the designers on these wireframes, because I think in most cases designers come up with the wireframes first and then they go to the content designer. So
Yeah, it definitely depends on your organizational context. In previous companies, there was definitely a charm offensive to get in early. I'm actually really lucky. I'm in from the beginning of my current company. So by hook or by crook, try to get in early.
My question is for Meredith too, about the conversational design. You talked about the user interface having to be responsive and having to engage the engineers and helping them become technical with it so it becomes more responsive. And I'm thinking, do you think using personas would help with that? Because I know they're used a lot now, but some companies are giving them up because they're too narrow defined, and then they define one type of conversation.
That's a really good question. I've definitely used personas a lot and looked into them. sometimes I'll write imagining a particular research participant that I've talked with. But my fear is always like, am I over-indexing on that one person or one participant? My feeling is just like if you immerse yourself as much as you can with all of the different inputs from the various orgs, you can start thinking about different ways that it flexes and personalizes based on the user data and user's behavior and situation. Yeah, but it will be a tricky thing. I'm not sure I have the right answer.
Hey there. This is a question for all three of you. I'm breaking into the field, and so just very curious, what do you find most fulfilling about UX?
I think for me, it's kind of like putting together a puzzle. So I don't like puzzles, but I like I like crafting end-to-end experiences and thinking through like, what is this person thinking at every stage of the journey, and how do I write to that? How do I best communicate to them what they need to know at each stage? So for me, it's really, I enjoy the challenge of piecing all of these disparate parts together.
I mean, I actually love, I think right now in my career, the thing I love most is getting in the room with people and collaborating. I used to think I was an introvert, and now all I want to do is talk to people about design problems. But I think a couple of years ago, I would have said my favorite thing is getting rid of the words. Like when you have a wireframe with lots of words and you just cut it down so it's gorgeous and minimal, like a piece of poetry, you're like, yes, I nailed it. It's a puzzle thing. Anyway.
So if you asked me 5 years ago this question, I would say I just love bringing clarity and meaning to the user interface and to help my users. But now I take pride in being a designer. I just love solving the problems and building experiences with my teams. And I just think of myself as a builder now rather than a writer. And I think, writing has been considered like some kind of an inner activity that nobody really understands. And then, your job is just there to wordsmith. But it's not really what UX writing or content design is all about. It's really about design.
Do you find a difference between a content designer and a content strategist? Are they sort of used interchangeably in the industry?
That's a hard question, I think, because I think it also depends on the organization and how it's structured. Like at Intuit, we actually do have content designers, and then there is a content strategy team that focuses more on IA, navigation, the design system, the content system. And then you have the content designers who focus on the marketing and the in-product work. So within our org, they are different, but I've also, just being around with these meetups and seeing different job descriptions over the years, they are used very interchangeably at different companies.
Let's take one more question.
I have a question. Felicia, you said in yours, if they come to you at the end and you're just correcting a comma and doing these things, then it's like you're doing the copy editing part of the job. And actually, I know, Meredith, for Intercom, I know you're the designer of the content right at the very beginning design process. I wondered if each of you guys could talk about in your companies how you position yourself so you're in the content design and not in the copy editing area. Thank you.
Well, I think there's different types of work. There's the minimally viable work, quick work, and if they come to you late, and you can just take care of it. But there's other types of projects that require design thinking, that requires you to partner with your designers and researcher, and that's the type of project that you want to focus on. And I think the way we position ourselves in the company is, like we used to have various titles. When I started, I was content strategy manager. Jesse was like UX writer, and Natalia was product writer. And then we consolidated everything into content designer because we felt like that best articulated what we do. And that puts us on the same equal footing as designers. And I think that sends a very clear message. Sometimes people are so confused, but at least it's in the job title, and then that sends a message that, oh, these people are not writers. And like that, back to your earlier question, like, if a request comes to you late, and then I think we're saying that, you could say, I can't take this on. So it's just depends on your organization a lot too.
A tip for surviving in big companies, I would say, is I used to work with designers who were located near me, but not in the same building. And we used to call each other. And then one day I realized that actually it would be good if I just sat with them one day a week. And just the propinquity was such a game changer. Because then you start having little hallway conversations about like, oh, what do you think about this? And it just becomes a lot easier. But now I would say I have the luxury of kind of picking the places that will allow me access.
I do a lot of stalking on Slack channels and catch things there. I'm like, has content looked at this yet? I'd love to partner with you. We also have, our team has a daily stand-up, so I generally know about everything that's going on. So if there's something that's just coming up, that's the time that I can raise my hand and say, hey, I'd love to be involved in that customer research you're doing. I'd love to help you, start prototyping or wireframing this experience. So that's a chance for me to raise my hand and say, yeah, I want to start working with you on this stuff early stage, as opposed to, yeah, I've got all the mock-ups done, I just need content. And that's when I say, I don't have bandwidth for that.
Awesome. Well, let's give all three panelists a hand. A big thank you for the time. And I think we're going to end with a quick activity that Carrie's going to lead.
Yeah, I need my laptop so I can pull up the slides.